Hanui stared at the blue planet through the viewing window of her research ship. Her silver scales reflected the dim light of the observation deck as she recorded her final notes about Earth, or as her people called it, Death World K775. The name wasn't wrong. The planet had everything that could kill a Kiveri: high gravity, dangerous predators, and extreme weather changes. Senior researcher Hanoi. Urgent message from home, the ship's computer announced. She turned away from the window, her long tail wrapping around her legs for comfort. Something felt wrong. The weekly updates from the Science Council weren't due for 3 more days. The message played on the main screen. Hanui's heart stopped as she watched scenes of chaos unfold on her homeworld. The military council had taken control of the government. They were calling all ships back home, all except the research vessels. "We cannot waste resources on knowledge seekers during this time of crisis," the new military leader announced. "All research missions are hereby terminated. Ships and resources are to be preserved for military use only." Hanui's hands shook as she tried to contact the other 5 members of her team. No answer. She ran to their quarters, her feet making soft tapping sounds on the metal floor. Empty. All of them empty. They had left her behind. Warning lights flashed red across the ship. The computer's voice came again. Alert. Unauthorized launch of escape pods detected. Alert. Ship's main engine startup sequence initiated. Remote override in progress. Computer, stop engine startup. Hanui shouted, running to the control room. Access denied. Command codes revoked. She understood now. Her team hadn't just abandoned her. They had sabotaged the ship. The military would blame her, the senior researcher, for the loss of an expensive research vessel. Hanui had only minutes to decide. The ship would soon jump to light speed, programmed to crash into the system's sun. She had one choice: take the last escape pod and risk landing on the death world below. The emergency pod was small, barely big enough for her 2-meter-tall frame. As she strapped herself in, she grabbed her research tablet and emergency medical kit. The computer's countdown echoed through the ship. Engine ignition in 2 minutes. Hanui's fingers flew over the pod's controls. The launch sequence started, but something was wrong. Warning lights flashed on the control panel. Her team had damaged this pod too, but not completely. It would still launch, but she couldn't control where it would land. Engine ignition in 1 minute. She hit the launch button. The pod shot away from the ship with a violent jerk. Through the small window, Hanui watched her research vessel grow smaller. The ship's engines glowed bright blue, and then it vanished into light speed, leaving her alone above the deadly planet. The pod entered Earth's atmosphere, and everything started shaking. Warning alarms screamed as the heat shield began to fail. Hanui gripped her harness, her scales flattening against her body in fear. The pod's systems were failing faster than expected. Through the window, she saw mountains and forests spinning below. The ground was coming up too fast. She pulled the emergency brake lever, but it only slowed the pod slightly. Trees rushed up to meet her. The impact threw her against the harness. Metal screamed as the pod crashed through branches and slammed into the ground. Hanui's head hit the sidewall, and pain exploded behind her eyes. The pod rolled 3 times before stopping upside down. She hummed from her harness, blood dripping from a cut on her head. The pod's door had been torn off, letting in the cold mountain air. Strange animal sounds echoed through the trees. Her translator told her the local time was just before sunset. Hanui knew she had to move. Her people had studied Earth enough to know what lived in these forests. Large predators would be hunting soon. She unstrapped herself, falling awkwardly to the pod's ceiling. Every movement hurt. Using her tablet, she checked her injuries. 2 cracked ribs, a sprained ankle, and the head wound. Bad, but her medical kit could help with those. The bigger problem was outside. Earth's gravity was already making it hard to breathe. Her species wasn't built for this planet's pressure. As the sun set, Hanui heard a long howl in the distance. Her scales rippled in fear. She was a scientist, trained to study dangerous worlds from the safety of a ship. Now she was trapped on the most dangerous world her people had ever found. And she was completely alone. The morning sun found Hanui limping through the forest. She had waited in her broken pod until dawn, listening to the sounds of Earth's nighttime predators. Her medical kit had helped with the pain, but walking in Earth's heavy gravity still hurt. She needed to find higher ground. Her people's studies showed that human settlements were common in this region, but she had to be careful. Humans were known to be very dangerous when scared, and she didn't want to frighten them. A sound made her freeze. Something was moving through the trees ahead. Hanui pressed herself against a large tree trunk, her silver scales changing color to match the bark. It was one of her species' few defensive abilities. Through the branches, she saw a large brown animal. Her tablet identified it as a bear. The creature was much bigger than the images in her research files. It stood on its back legs, sniffing the air. Hanui held her breath. The bear dropped to all fours and moved away. She waited 10 minutes before moving again. The forest felt alive around her. Birds called from the trees, small animals rushed through the bushes, and insects buzzed everywhere. It was beautiful but terrifying. 2 hours later, Hanui found a small stream. She was testing the water with her tablet when she heard the click. It wasn't a natural sound. She turned slowly. 20 meters away stood a human male. He held something in his hands, not a weapon, but some kind of black box with a long front piece. Her research told her it was a camera. The human stared at her. He wore thick clothes in earth colors and carried a large backpack. He didn't run. He didn't scream. He just looked at her with wide eyes. Hanui stayed very still. She tried to remember everything she knew about human body language. Slow movements, no sudden actions, don't show teeth. The human slowly lowered his camera. He said something, but her translator was damaged in the crash. It only caught a few words. Hurt, help, safe. Hanui's legs were shaking from Earth's gravity. She needed to rest. The human must have noticed because he pointed to a fallen tree nearby. He moved back, giving her space to sit. She sat carefully, keeping her eyes on the human. He was shorter than her but looked strong. His face had lines that her research said showed age and experience. He moved with the comfort of someone who knew these woods well. The human set down his backpack and took out a small box with a red cross. She recognized it. A human medical kit. He pointed to her injuries, then to the kit. Hanui understood. He wanted to help. But before she could respond, a deep growl came from behind her. The bear had returned. It was standing at the stream's edge, looking bigger and angrier than before. The human's face changed. He stepped forward, putting himself between Hanui and the bear. He spoke firmly to the animal while slowly reaching into his pocket. Hanui smelled something strange, some kind of spray in a small can. The bear charged. The human sprayed the can. The bear roared and backed away, shaking its head. The human made loud noises and raised his arms, making himself look bigger. After what felt like forever, the bear turned and ran. Hanui's legs gave out. The fear, the gravity, and her injuries were too much. As she fell, the human moved quickly to catch her. She was surprised by his strength. Her species was much heavier than humans because of their dense bones. He helped her sit again and opened his medical kit. He pointed to himself and said clearly, Tagil. Hanui tried to say his name, but her mouth couldn't make the exact sounds. It came out as Tager. The human smiled and nodded. He didn't seem to mind. She pointed to herself. Hanui. Tagil smiled again and began cleaning her head wound. His hands were gentle but sure. Hanui watched him work, amazed. Humans were supposed to be dangerous primitives. That's what all her people's research said. But this human had just saved her life. Twice. As Tagil bandaged her injuries, Hanui realized something important. Maybe her people's research was wrong. Maybe there was much more to learn about humans than anyone had thought. And maybe, just maybe, she wasn't so alone after all. Tagil's cabin was small but warm. Hanui sat on the floor, her long tail curled around her legs, watching the human make something he called tea. The wood walls were covered with pictures, beautiful images of earth animals that Tagil had taken with his camera. 3 days had passed since their first meeting. Her translator was still broken, but they were finding ways to talk. Tagil was patient, teaching her simple words by pointing at things and saying their names. "Water," he said now, holding up a cup. Then he pointed to the hot liquid he was making. "Tea." Hanui tried the words. Her mouth was shaped differently from a human's, but she was learning. Tagil smiled at her attempts, never laughing at her mistakes. She took out her tablet, glad it still worked even after the crash. She drew a simple picture of her ship and the escape pod. Tagil looked at it carefully, then drew his own picture. It showed him driving his truck to where the pod had crashed. Hanui understood. He wanted to get her broken equipment. She shook her head and drew more pictures of other humans with weapons, of her being taken away for study. Tagil's face became serious. He understood her fear. He drew new pictures of his cabin, of the forest, of Hanui being safe. Then he drew a picture of himself with an X over his mouth. He was promising to keep her secret. A loud knock at the door made them both jump. Hanui heard a female voice calling out. Tagil's eyes went wide. He pointed to a door, his bedroom, and Hanui quickly went inside. Through the thin walls, she heard Tagil talking to someone. Her translator caught pieces of words. Surprise visit. Worried. Not answering phone. The female voice belonged to his sister, Bora. Hanui remembered him drawing a picture of his family earlier. In the bedroom, Hanui accidentally bumped a shelf. Something fell. The voices outside stopped. Footsteps came toward the bedroom. Hanui looked around in panic. She couldn't hide. The room was too small. Her scales changed color, trying to match the walls. But she knew it wasn't perfect. The door opened. Bora stood there, her mouth open in shock. She was shorter than her brother, wearing what Hanui's research called doctor's clothes. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Bora did something surprising. She closed the door quietly and went back to talk to her brother. Hanui's translator caught more words. Explain. Helping. Trust me. An hour later, Bora came back with her medical bag. She checked Hanui's injuries much more carefully than Tagil had. Her hands were gentle, and she spoke softly, even though Hanui couldn't understand most words. Bora took out her phone and opened something called Google Translate. She typed in words that became other words. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than nothing. Doctor, Bora typed, pointing to herself. Help you. Safe here. Hanui used her tablet to draw herself sick, showing how Earth's gravity was hurting her lungs. Bora nodded with understanding. She typed more. We'll find way. Trust us. That night, both humans spent hours helping Hanui move her things from the bedroom to a bigger space in the basement. They brought down soft blankets, pillows, and something called a space heater that made the room warmer. Before they went upstairs, Bora gave Hanui some medicine for her breathing. It helped a little. Then she typed one more message. Come back tomorrow. Bring better medicine. Hanui looked at the two humans, the quiet photographer who had saved her life, and the doctor who could have reported her but chose to help instead. She drew a picture of all three of them together and added a human symbol she had learned. A heart. Tagil and Bora smiled. Bora drew another heart, bigger than Hanui's. Then she wrote in simple English that Hanui had learned. Family help family. As Hanui lay in her new bed that night, she thought about that word. Family. On her world, family meant those you were born to. But maybe here, on Earth, it meant something more. Maybe it meant anyone who chose to help you, to protect you, to care about you. Maybe, she thought as she drifted off to sleep, She had found a new kind of family. 2 weeks had passed since Bora discovered Hanui. The alien sat at Tagil's workbench, carefully taking apart her broken translator. Around her were pieces of old phones and computers that Bora had brought from the hospital's trash. "Try this one," Tagil said, handing her a small circuit board. He had learned to speak slowly and clearly so her damaged translator could understand most of his words. Hanui connected the circuit board to her translator. The device hummed, then sparked. She quickly unplugged it. "Not right," she said in her best human speech. "Need different power source." Tagil nodded and went back to sorting through the electronic parts. He never showed frustration when their attempts failed. Hanui had noticed this about him. He had endless patience. The basement door opened, and Bora came down with her medical bag. "Good news," she said, showing them a bottle of new medicine. "This should help with the gravity problems." Hanui took the medicine gratefully. Bora's treatments were working. She could now stand and walk for several hours without getting too tired. Her ribs had healed, and her head wound was just a scar now. As Bora checked Hanui's breathing, Tagil's phone made a noise. He looked at it and frowned. "More strange lights in the sky," he said. "Third report this week." Hanui's scales rippled with worry. She knew what those lights meant. Her people were looking for her. Not to rescue her. The military council would want to make sure no one survived to tell the truth about the coup. She picked up a working tablet and drew what she knew. The military council's ships, their weapons, their plans. Bora and Tagil watched with serious faces. "We need help," Bora said. She pulled out her phone and called someone. An hour later, a new human arrived. He wore a dark blue uniform and introduced himself as Officer Lee Jinho. He looked at Hanui with surprise, but no fear. "Dr. Kim told me everything," Jinho said. "I'm here to help." He showed them pictures on his phone of the strange lights. "These appeared 3 days ago." "What are they?" Hanui's translator was working better now. She explained about the scout ships, how they searched for escaped scientists. Jinho asked smart questions about the ship's capabilities and weaknesses. Why did they turn against scientists? Jinho asked. Hanui connected her tablet to Tagil's old TV. On the screen, she showed them recordings from her ship, the military council announcing their takeover, the chaos in the streets, the scientists who try to resist being arrested. "They fear knowledge," Hanui explained. "Knowledge means change. Change means losing power." Jinho nodded with understanding. "Same story on every planet, I guess," he said. He made a call to his superiors, speaking in careful words about possible situations and preventive measures. While Jinho talked, Hanui worked on her translator again. Suddenly, it clicked. The screen lit up with full power. She had fixed it. "It works," she said, her words now being perfectly translated into human speech. "I can explain everything properly now." For the next hour, Hanui told them everything. About her world's technology, their studies of Earth, why they had labeled humans as dangerous primitives. As she talked, she realized how wrong those studies had been. "Your people think we're primitive because we're different," Tagil said. "Because we solve problems in different ways." "Yes," Hanui admitted. "We thought technology was the only measure of advancement. But now I see there are other kinds of advancement, like how you help strangers, how you face problems together." Jinho's phone rang again. His face became serious as he listened. "More ships entering orbit," he said after hanging up. "Bigger ones this time." Hanui felt fear in her stomach. The scout ships had found something. Now the warships were coming. "What do we do?" Bora asked. Hanui looked at these humans who had helped her, who had become her family. They weren't primitive. They were strong in ways her people never understood. And now, they would need that strength. "We prepared," she said, "because they're not just coming for me anymore. They're coming for Earth." Officer Jinho spread a map across Togil's kitchen table. Red marks showed where the alien ships had been seen. Hanui stood next to him, her silver scales reflecting the morning light. "They're searching in a pattern," Jinho said, pointing to the marks. "Getting closer to this area." Hanui nodded. "They know how to track damaged escape pods. They've done this before on other worlds." Togil brought coffee for everyone except Hanui, who drank special medicine-mixed water that Bora had made for her. The cabin felt smaller with 4 people in it, but safer too. "How much time do we have?" Bora asked, marking the latest ship sighting on the map. 3 days, maybe 4, Hanui said. She touched her tablet, showing images of Kiveri military ships. "They have to search at night. Earth's sun is too bright for their sensors." Jinho's phone buzzed. The news wasn't good. 2 hikers saw something in the forest last night. Not a ship. They said it looked like a silver machine walking on 6 legs. Hanui's scales turned pale. "Hunter drones. They're already on the ground." She showed them a new image on her tablet. The machine looked like a giant metal spider. "What do these drones do?" Togil asked quietly. "They hunt," Hanui said. "They can see body heat, hear heartbeats, and smell chemicals in the air. And they never stop looking." Jinho stood up straighter. "Then we need to move you somewhere safer. The military has a secure facility." "No," Hanui cut him off. "The drones will track me. Anyone near me will be in danger." She looked at her human friends with sad eyes. "I should leave. Go somewhere far from people." Togil put his hand on her arm. "That's not happening. We protect our own." "He's right," Bora said. "Your family now. Family stays together." Jinho nodded. "And we're not defenseless. Our military has been watching these ships. We have plans for situations like this." Hanui felt warmth in her chest. On her world, most people would have turned her in to save themselves. But these humans were different. A loud beeping came from Hanui's tablet. She checked it quickly, her scales turning dark with fear. Drone signal. Close. Very close. Everyone moved at once. Jinho pulled out his gun. Togil turned off all the lights. Bora grabbed their emergency bags. They had prepared them days ago, just in case. Through the window, they saw it. The hunter drone moved through the trees on its 6 metal legs. Each leg was as tall as a human. Its silver body shone in the sunlight. The drone's head turned slowly, scanning the area. "The basement," Togil whispered. "It's lined with old metal sheets. Might block its sensors." They moved quietly down the basement stairs. Hanui's heart was beating so fast, she was sure the drone would hear it. They had just reached the bottom when they heard it. The sound of metal legs on the cabin's front porch. The drone was right above them. Everyone held their breath. The machine's weight made the floorboards creak. Its scanners hummed as it searched for signs of life. Minutes passed. Hanui counted her heartbeats. 100, 200, 300. Finally, the sound of metal legs moved away. But they couldn't relax yet. Hanui checked her tablet again. "It's not leaving," she whispered. "It's circling the cabin, searching for tracks." Jinho checked his phone. No signal in the basement. They were cut off. "How long will it keep searching?" Bora asked. "Until it finds something," Hanui said, "or until its masters call it back." Togil looked at the basement's small window. "There's an old tunnel under the cabin," he said. "Locals used it to store food. It comes out near the stream. The water might hide our tracks," Jinho said. "And our body heat." Hanui looked at her friends. They were trapped in a basement while a killing machine hunted above them. Any normal person would be terrified. But these humans were already making plans, finding ways to fight back. Maybe that's why her people feared humans so much. Not because they were primitive, but because they never gave up, never stopped fighting. And now they were fighting for her. The old tunnel was cold and wet. Hanui, Togil, Bora, and Jinho had been hiding there for 6 hours. Above them, they could still hear the hunter drone searching the area. "We need to share what we know," Jinho said quietly. "Both sides. It might help us survive." Hanui nodded. Her night vision was better than the humans, so she had been watching the tunnel entrance. Now she turned to face her friends. "The drones have 2 weak spots," she said, drawing in the dirt with a stick. "Their sensor arrays in the head, and their power cores in the body. But their armor is very strong." "What about electricity?" Bora asked. "Could we short-circuit them?" "Yes, but it would take more power than your electrical systems have." Tagil had been quiet, thinking. "What about water? You said their sensors don't work well in rain." Hanui's scales brightened slightly, a sign of hope. "Water confuses them. It reflects their scanning beams." Jinho checked his phone. "Storm coming tomorrow night. Big one. Could give us cover to move to a safer place." While they waited, Hanui shared more about her world. She told them about the cities built in crystal towers, about the 3 moons that lit their nights, about the flying creatures they kept as pets. In return, the humans taught her about Earth. Tagil showed her pictures of places he had photographed. Deserts, oceans, mountains covered in snow. Bora explained about human medicine, how they were always finding new ways to heal. "Your people adapt so quickly," Hanui said with wonder. "On my world, changes take generations to accept. But humans, you see a problem and just find ways to solve it." "We have to," Bora said. "Our world keeps changing, so we have to change too." Jinho was using Hanui's tablet to study Kiveri military tactics. "Your soldiers think in straight lines," he said. "Attack, defend, retreat. Very ordered." "Yes," Hanui agreed. "We believe disorder leads to failure." "But sometimes disorder is the best weapon," Jinho said. "Chaos can be a strategy too." Hanui thought about this. It was true. Everything about Earth was unpredictable. The weather, the animals, the humans themselves. Maybe that's why they were so strong. Suddenly, Tagil touched her arm. He had been watching her face with concern. "You're tired," he said. "The gravity is still hard for you." She tried to deny it, but he was right. Even with Bora's medicine, Earth's pull was exhausting. Without thinking, she leaned against Tagil's shoulder. He didn't move away. Bora smiled at them, but said nothing. She was mixing more medicine for Hanui, adding something new to help with muscle strength. "Tell us about your family," Jinho said to Hanui. "The ones from before." Hanui's scales darkened with sadness. "I was raised in a science group. We didn't have families like humans do. Knowledge was our family." "And now?" Bora asked gently. Hanui looked at each of them, the doctor who healed her, the officer who protected her, the photographer who saved her. "Now I understand why humans value family so much. It gives you strength." A loud crash came from above. The drone was moving again, but differently this time. Its steps were faster, more purposeful. "It found something," Hanui whispered. Everyone went quiet, listening. The drone's legs moved toward the cabin, then stopped. A new sound filled the air, a high-pitched signal that made Hanui's scales ripple with fear. "It's calling the others," she said. "More drones will come." Jinho checked his weather app again. "Storms coming faster than expected. 3 hours maybe." "Then we have 3 hours to get ready," Tagil said. He looked at Hanui. "What's the craziest way you've seen humans solve a problem?" Hanui thought about everything she had learned about humans. Their creativity, their determination, their willingness to try impossible things. "Show me," she said, feeling braver. "Show me how humans fight." The storm hit hard, just as Jinho predicted. Rain poured down while thunder shook the mountains. Hanui and her human family watched from their hiding place as 5 more hunter drones joined the first one. "They're making the search circle," Hanui said, watching through Tagil's binoculars. moving out from the cabin. They had prepared well. Jin-Ho's military friends had brought special equipment without asking too many questions. Bo-Ra had mixed chemicals from her hospital. Ta-Gil knew every hidden path in these woods. "Look," Bo-Ra whispered, pointing up. Through the storm clouds, they saw lights. More ships. Hanui checked her tablet. Her scales turned almost white with fear. Worse. It's a command ship. The military council themselves are here. Lightning flashed across the sky. In that bright moment, they saw the huge shape of the Kaveri ship hanging in the air. It was bigger than 3 football fields. Why would they come themselves? Jin-Ho asked, checking his radio. More military units were hiding in the forest, waiting for his signal. "Because they're scared," Hanui said. "Scared I'll tell everyone what they did. Scared of Earth. Scared of humans." Ta-Gil touched her arm gently. "Good. Scared people make mistakes." They watched as something dropped from the command ship. It looked like a metal egg, but huge. When it hit the ground, it opened. 20 more hunter drones walked out. "That's their whole hunting pack," Hanui said. "They're not taking chances." Bo-Ra checked her phone. "Lightning's getting stronger. Perfect time to try our plan." Jin-Ho nodded and spoke into his radio. Around the forest, human soldiers moved into position. They carried special equipment, metal rods connected to powerful batteries. "Remember," Hanui said, "the drones talk to each other. If we confuse one, we confuse them all." The hunter drones were getting closer to their hiding place. Each one moved carefully through the rain, their sensors working harder to see through the water. "Now," Jin-Ho said into his radio. All around the forest, soldiers pushed the metal rods into the wet ground. They turned on the batteries. Electricity flowed into the earth, spreading through the rainwater. The drones stopped moving. Their sensors were getting mixed signals from the electricity in the ground. They began walking in circles, bumping into trees. "Second part," Ta-Gil said. Bo-Ra took out small bottles of chemicals from her bag. They were the same chemicals that made Hanui's scales change color. She had helped Bo-Ra make them stronger. They threw the bottles high into the air. The wind from the storm spread the chemicals everywhere. As the rain washed them down, everything they touched started changing colors. The drone sensors went crazy. Now they saw heat signals everywhere, all changing and moving. They couldn't tell what was human, what was animal, and what was just chemicals. "It's working," Bo-Ra said excitedly. But then they heard a new sound. From the command ship, a voice boomed out in the Kaveri language. Anui translated for her friends. "They're ordering everyone to stop," she said. "They're saying..." She stopped, her scales turning dark with anger. "They're saying they'll destroy this whole forest if I don't surrender." Ta-Gil grabbed her hand before she could stand up. "No, we have one more plan." Jin-Ho spoke into his radio again. Up in the storm clouds, hidden by rain and thunder, human aircraft were waiting. They had been watching the command ship, learning its weak spots. "Your people think humans are primitive," Jin-Ho said to Hanui. "They don't know we've been preparing for aliens for years. We have our own surprises." Hanui looked at her friends, her true family. They had fought for her, planned for her, risked everything for her, and now she understood something important. "The military council thinks they're hunting me," she said, "but really, they just walked into a trap, because they never learned Earth's most important lesson." "What's that?" Bo-Ra asked. Lightning flashed again, showing the determination on Hanui's face. Never underestimate humans protecting their family. Thunder cracked across the sky as human jets broke through the storm clouds. They were smaller than the Kaveri command ship, but they moved faster, more cleverly. The alien ship's weapons couldn't lock onto them through the rain and lightning. "Your ships are too big," Hanui said, watching through Ta-Gil's camera lens. "They're built for space, not air combat." On the ground, the confused hunter drones were still spinning in circles. The mix of electricity and color-changing chemicals had destroyed their ability to track anything. Some of them started attacking trees, thinking they were targets. The military council's voice boomed from their ship again. This time they sounded angry. They're ordering their drones to switch to full attack mode. Hanu translated. Her scales rippled with worry. The drones will destroy everything they see. Good, Jin-Ho said, speaking into his radio. That's what we wanted. All around the forest, hidden soldiers turned up the power on their electrical rods. The wet ground carried the electricity straight to the drone's legs. At the same time, Bora's chemicals started reacting to the lightning, creating false heat signatures everywhere. The drones went completely crazy. They started attacking each other, unable to tell friend from enemy. Their powerful weapons turned the forest into chaos, but they hit nothing important. All the humans and animals were safely hidden underground. Up in the sky, the human jets were doing something strange. They flew in patterns that made no sense, sometimes nearly crashing into each other. The cavalry ship's weapons followed them, trying to predict where they would go. I don't understand, Hanui said. Why are they flying like that? Tagil smiled. They're acting like birds in a storm. Random movements. No pattern. Now Hanui understood. Her people's military relied on finding patterns, predicting what enemies would do. But humans knew sometimes the best pattern was no pattern at all. The command ship's weapons couldn't hit anything. Every time they fired, the jets were somewhere else. The storm made everything worse for the alien ship's computers. Time for the real attack, Jin-Ho said. From the other side of the mountain, larger human aircraft appeared. While the small jets distracted the command ship, these planes had moved into position. They carried special weapons designed to disable electrical systems. The planes fired. Beams of energy cut through the rain, hitting the command ship's engines. The huge ship's lights flickered. Direct hit, Bora shouted. Hanui quickly connected her tablet to her translator. She had to act fast. While the military council was confused, she sent a message to her homeworld. The message contained everything. Proof of the council's crimes, their attacks on scientists, their lies about humans. Message sent, she said. Everyone back home will know the truth now. The command ship was starting to fall. Its anti-gravity systems were failing. The military council had no choice. They had to retreat before their ship crashed. A bright light filled the sky as the command ship activated its emergency drives. All the remaining hunter drones suddenly stopped moving, their connection to their masters cut off. They're running away, Tagil said, holding Hanui's hand tightly. The huge ship vanished into space, leaving Earth's sky empty except for rain and lightning. Around them, the disabled hunter drones fell to the ground like dead metal spiders. Jin-Ho's radio came alive with voices. The human military was moving in to collect the fallen drones. Scientists would study them, learn from them. Humans would be better prepared if the military council ever returned. Is it really over? Boret asked, helping Hanui stand up. The alien was tired from Earth's gravity, but her scales were bright with happiness. The fight here is over, Hanui said. But my message will start a bigger fight back home. The truth about what the council did, about what humans are really like, it will change everything. Tagil looked at the sky where the ship had disappeared. Will they come back? Hanui shook her head. Not to fight. The council's power came from fear and lies. Now everyone will know how wrong they were about humans. She looked at her friends with pride. They'll know that humans aren't primitive beasts at all. You're the most amazing people I've ever known. Lightning flashed one last time, showing the destroyed drones, the brave humans emerging from their hiding places, and 4 friends standing together. 3 humans and 1 alien, all of them family. 3 months after the battle in the forest, Hanui stood in front of the United Nations building in New York. The gravity still made her tired, but Bora's medicine helped a lot. Her silver scales shimmered in the sunlight as she prepared to speak to Earth's leaders. Tagil stood next to her, holding her hand. He had traded his forest clothes for a suit, though he still kept his camera with him. On her other side, Bora and Jin-Ho waited proudly. "The representatives from your homeworld are ready," Jin-Ho said, checking his phone. After Hanui's message exposed the military council's crimes, her people had risen up against them. The scientists were freed, and a new government took control. Now they wanted to make peace with Earth. "Are you nervous?" Ta-Gil asked softly. Hanui smiled. "No, humans taught me how to be brave." Inside the building, leaders from all Earth's countries waited. On a large screen, representatives from Hanui's world watched through a space link. This was the first official meeting between the two species. Hanui walked to the podium. Her translator, now fully fixed, would let everyone understand her words. "3 months ago, I thought I was going to die on this world," she began. "I believed what my people taught me, that humans were primitive and dangerous. I was wrong." She told them everything. About the military council's lies, about how humans had saved her, about how Earth's people had fought to protect not just their world, but her as well. "Humans are not primitive," she said. "You are different. You solve problems in new ways."